The ability to see people's potential is actually a gift. You're just using it on the wrong people. Whether you're dating someone for too long, whether you keep friends around you that are dragging you down, we have all been guilty of hanging on to people because who we believe they were or who we want them to be is what we're more focused on than who they actually are. It's so easy to get into a space of feeling bad for yourself or feeling stupid because you fell for it. But in reality, it's so human to see the best in somebody and want to love that version of them in hopes that it will cause them to love themselves enough to either change or align with who they are meant to actually be. But when we use this gift without discernment, we literally have the ability to want people to align with the version we've created in our mind of who they should be or who we desire them to be than who they actually have the potential or power to be in their own lives. The ability to see people's potential is a gift because not everybody has it. Most of us do see things as they are. And when you have the ability to see the potential in something or the potential in someone, you're seeing the true nature of that person. You're seeing what they would be like if they were fully in alignment. If they believed in themselves in the way that their higher self does, God, the universe, whatever you call it, if they were to connect to that version of themselves, how powerful, how potent their energy would be. And when you use this gift with discernment, this can help you choose life partners, choose friends, choose opportunities in life that are more in alignment for you. Even if the people don't necessarily look like what you're entirely used to, what you grew up with, what seemed normal in your environment. It's also a gift because when you're the kind of person who brings the energy of seeing people's potential and activating that part of them through your advice or the love that you give or the care that you give, just your energy, your vibe, you have the ability to elevate those around you by either being the example or helping them see themselves enough to shift into the example what they desire to be. You can also build community when you have this ability. You can see the kind of people that would mesh well with you on an energetic level. And this really is beyond the physical state. So this is not just seeing people for their race, the way their body looks, the way that they dress. Like those physical things may not be a reflection of who they actually are yet. And when you can see this in someone and you're not distracted just by what they physically look like, you can actually find sometimes some of the most incredible people that will have such a major impact on your life because you're not looking for what they physically look like. This is why discernment is such an incredible part in activating this gift, in helping you elevate yourself in this way. And when we talk about personal development, we're talking about spiritually aligning, we're talking about advancing ourselves in our life to the fullest potential. You do want to be able to see people for their best and know who would be in alignment with the version of you you're desiring to be, right? Because the first person we're going to use this gift on is ourselves. And when we can see our potential, guess what starts happening? You stop thinking to yourself, it's okay for me to be around people who are not in alignment. It's okay for me to still hang out with so-and-so who will never get their life together, because you recognize that your own potential is so potent and so powerful. And when it's fully in alignment, when you do not feel guilty for showing up as a version of yourself that you desire to be, when you do not think to yourself, I hope people like me. When you start saying the right people will like me, who is meant to find me will find me. The people who I am in alignment, they love me and I love them. You're shifting yourself. So that means that the people who are around you have to be willing and comfortable with shifting too. Why? Because we're trying to be our absolute best selves. And when people are around us who are not desiring to be at that level of existence, there's no shame and no shade in it, because obviously we're separating from them with love and no judgment, but we don't want to spend too much time dwelling in spaces that are not in alignment for us. So how most of us are using this gift, and why I'm saying we're using it on the wrong people, is typically it's being with people who are not ready to shift in life, and we feel guilty. So we think to ourselves, oh, they would be the best dad, husband, lover, if only X, Y, and Z, if only they could see. When you know you're using that gift wrong, when you're staying in relationships too long, when you're staying in connections too long, is when the drain is far greater than what is gained in that relationship. And again, sometimes we can think of this as like shallow, right? This is the societal programming that when you don't want to be with somebody because they don't have this or they don't have that. This is no different than when you go to a restaurant or you go to any kind of establishment and they literally say they have the right to refuse service. You have the right to say that I am not in alignment with you. They're not mean. They're not disrespecting people. We don't think anything of that. We do not think that's weird. We think that's their establishment, that's their business. And if you're coming in disrespecting the way that they do things, or you're not paying them what they say that they're worth, then you shouldn't be there. This is no different than when you go out to the club or to a nice restaurant and they have a dress code and you show up in flip-flops and they don't want to let you in because you literally take down the look. The image of that place is going to be hindered by you showing up. You're going to be a message to the rest of the people around that this is what we accept. And the same is with you. You want to say to yourself, is the person I'm with the version of me I desire to be? And let's be clear, you could be with someone right now who is not necessarily in alignment with that version, but if they're willing to shift with you, then that might be your person, right? Because sometimes we can be with people when we don't have our emotional intelligence in check, we don't have our spiritual connections grounded, we don't have the alignment that we're looking for, and maybe that person doesn't either. But if they're the kind of person who sees the potential in themselves and they see it in you and they're not afraid of that, they will shift with you. But when someone isn't ready and they're dragging you back, they're holding you down, then these are not the kind of people you want to be with. And again, I say this in every video and I'm going to continue to say it. This is not gender specific. You do not want to get into a state of mind of thinking that the only person you're looking out for who will do this is the opposite sex. You want to think to yourself that anybody can do this. Anyone who holds a title in my life, whether that is friend, stranger, acquaintance, boss, doesn't matter. Whoever it is in your life can have the capacity to do this to you. How this looks with friends is when you have a friend who liked you when you were the fat friend. They liked you when you were the ugly friend. They liked you when you were the friend who didn't dress nice. They liked you when you were the friend who didn't put themselves together, who didn't speak properly, who was too shy and uncomfortable. Now, all of a sudden, when you're the skinny friend, you got the hot body, you got the car, you have the great job, you're putting yourself together, you now dress stylish. Now, all of a sudden, they don't like that about you. They're trying to make you feel small. They're trying to make you feel bad. And again, I've had this before where I had friends who did this and then eventually was like, okay, talking trash to her isn't going to get her to stop doing X, Y, and Z. Now they want advice. Now they want to figure out how do they do their makeup? How do they do this? How do they do that? And when I gave them that advice, it wasn't enough. Then it became, well, you should stop doing it altogether. This is when we need to say, although I see great potential in you, you don't see it in you, and I'm going to have to fire you. Same way at a job, they hired you because they felt you had great potential. But your performance isn't matching the standards of that company or what you promised on your resume. You got to go, right? They lovingly part ways. They send you off. Sometimes they'll give you a reference for your next job, but sometimes they won't. This same thing with friends. If somebody is treating you in a way that doesn't feel good in your body, in your energetic body, in your emotional body, in your spiritual, physical body, then you need to say to yourself, am I holding on to something much longer than I need to? Is this person meant to come with me to this next stage, or am I meant to leave them behind? Sometimes we get really uncomfortable about leaving people behind because we feel like, oh, I've known them for a long time. Sometimes we say this, right, in relationships when we're dating people, and we think, I think I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. We do this with friends too. We can do this with friends as well. We can do this with people who are not romantic partners. We could do this with family members. There are some people, and sometimes when you're not comfortable, I would only recommend this for family. Like if you were not comfortable with cutting somebody off completely because they're a family member, you can start practicing having boundaries, right? You can start not answering the phone as much. You could start not texting them back as much. You want to get clear and comfortable with your own energy. You want to feel what it feels like when these toxic people are not around. Can you think clearer? Is your nervous system more regulated? Do you feel more stressed in your body? Are you retaining water because you're stressed? But then when they're not around, do you feel calmer, happier, whole, more peaceful? Your thoughts come to you more easily. You can clearly define who you are separate from them when they're not around. That's a sign that they're not someone who's meant to be with you. And eventually you'll start to feel more comfortable with not having them around you altogether. It won't feel like you're doing something bad. And again, when we feel uncomfortable like this, there is going to be a starting point in our childhood or at some critical point in our life where that feeling was so normal, but the ability to talk about it and say, this isn't how I want to be treated or I don't like this, that we weren't given space to do that. So you might freeze, right? You may lock up when it comes time to say, actually no, which is why we want to practice distancing ourselves until you get comfortable saying these things out loud. And as someone who had that too, had family members who were like this, I did the same thing. I'm telling you what I practiced. And then eventually when I finally saw that person in real life and I had the ability to say everything I wanted to, there is a part of you that feels like you want to go off on them, right? But you'll find when you're healed, you don't even feel the need to. I want to make clear that there comes a point in your healing journey when you really do feel sorry for these people and there's nothing that you desire from them. There isn't any closure. There isn't any desire to hear what they have to say. You don't need it. But while you still do, there's nothing wrong with that either. It means that the version of you that is desiring that, she has things she has to heal. They have things they have to heal. And you want to pay attention to that. You want to acknowledge that. And if we're too busy focusing on getting around these people, you won't even hear what you actually desire. It may not even be to tell them what you thought or why it was wrong. It could literally just be that you want to feel safe. And you can get that and give that to yourself without being around those people. Okay, I want to leave you with how we should be actually using this gift, how we should see it in our life and what we should be doing in order for us to fully tap into the greatest potential of the gift of being able to see people clearly and their potential. So the same way that you have the optimism of when you're using it wrong, you want to keep that, right? When you meet someone and you like them or you don't know anything about them, you have a question mark about would you two have a good enough connection to keep it going in the future? Are they the kind of person that you want to be around full time? Or is this like an acquaintance? Is this someone you just see sometimes and you wave and say hi? Or is this someone you want to sit down and have coffee with? Is this someone you want to have a partnership with? Is this someone you want to date? Is this someone you want to actually have in your life full time? Sometimes when we go through life, we are taught that the longer someone's around us, the more praise we get, right? This is why relationships, when we've been together for 10 years or we've been together since elementary school, high school, right? Then somehow it means that that relationship is of more value. And if you're not the kind of person who has that in your life, then somehow there's something wrong with you. It's not true, right? Because for myself, I grew up moving around a lot. So I never had that ability to say, I've known this person since kindergarten. I've known this person since I was 5. Like that, I don't have that. So I picked up people along the way, right? My neighbors were my cousins. You know, this person was my aunt, people who were close to the family. Like these are people who I felt like were family. So I have a desire to connect to people sometimes maybe more quickly than other people, but just as quickly, if you're not in alignment, gotta go. Why? Because my peace of mind is what I prioritize more than anything. I know I would not bring that to your life. I'm not bringing dog crap to the cookout talking about, hey, here's some mac and cheese. Like I'm not doing that to somebody else. So I know that when I tell someone they cannot be around me, and again, not everything needs to be explained, but I know it's coming from a place of fully being in alignment, because you may not be able to see that we're not in alignment, but I can. And that's enough of an authority for me to say, I got to go. So that's the first thing. You want to be clear on why you keep certain people around, or what you use as a gauge for a successful connection or why someone should be around you. The next thing is that recognize that it's okay to evolve. It's okay that the person you used to know, you just don't really jive on the same wavelength anymore. That's okay too. When we extend grace to other people, it's first because we can give it to ourselves. We're not judging ourselves because we don't have a lot of friends, right? We're not judging ourselves because, our relationships so far haven't lasted past 6 months. You really want to reframe the way that you see a successful connection. You want to be able to say that I keep people around because we truly ground in some higher level type stuff. Like, it feels good to be around people like this. We also then want to give grace to people who don't see the same level of connection in us either, right? Because that keeps us in flow. We're trying to be in a state of flow where really things don't bother us. They just don't get under our skin because we know we're in the driver's seat. And if I want to turn left, I'll turn left because I desire to, not because I'm being swayed emotionally by other things. So when you're meeting people and you feel like, man, this is the kind of person that I could really learn from, I could really grow with. I really feel like they would just be cool to be around. You want to be open in that. You want to be open enough to say, whatever happens, I'm good with, whether it goes in the direction that I desire or it doesn't. Because you could see the potential in this relationship, but maybe they're not ready yet. Maybe that's not what they were expecting. And so it's cool, right? You let it go. That's how you should be using that gift. You want to be able to say, if it's not right, that's okay too. When you're able to do this without judgment, without stuck energy, you really can unlock something within yourself and your ability to see life completely differently and change your reality moment to moment. This comes from a place of being so in alignment that when you meet someone, you can tell whether or not you're meant to give your full energy to this connection, whether it's a friendship or anything, any kind of relationship. You have the ability to see where that is meant to go. And I'll tell you right now, sometimes people, when you're in alignment and they're not in alignment, they feel like you can save them. They feel like if you connect to them, if only I could find someone like you. What people don't realize sometimes is that you being fully in alignment came from being out of alignment and getting into it. It's something that they can activate within their own lives too, but they don't know how yet. And sometimes you are meant to be that person for people, and other times you're not. Sometimes you do have to leave people where they are, and it's from a place of love, and it's from a place of saying, if we are meant to see each other again, if our paths are meant to cross again, they will. And if at that point we're more in alignment and it's meant to be a more solid connection, then it'll happen. Sometimes there are people you meet where they're meant to just spark something within you. Spark curiosity, spark a thought, spark the ability to see something a little bit differently than you currently do. And a lot of times we're just keeping people too long. We're keeping people in our lives longer than we're meant to. And just like trees in nature, there's a point where they shed the old. They let go, they release what is not meant to be held on to, including their fruits. When fruit is ripe, it drops. And if you don't come along and pick it at that moment, it drops to the floor. It rots. It decays so it can go back into the earth. These lessons that you gain from these connections are meant to go back into your earth. They're meant to go back into your core. You're meant to take the lessons from those interactions, and that's what you're meant to carry forward. Sometimes we think it's the people. We're programmed to believe it's the people. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just the way that they spoke to you, the way that you felt free in their presence, the energy that they brought to your life. You're meant to take that with you and nothing else. And that hurts sometimes, especially if this is someone you thought you were meant to be with. If it is someone that you thought you loved or thought loved you, that hurts. And you want to acknowledge it. You want to acknowledge the pain of that. But then you want to remember that you are at the console. It is you pushing the buttons. You're in charge. And when you're ready, you can give yourself permission to move forward, to have the life that you desire, unapologetically, with love, grace, and alignment.